groom it, take care of it.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 10 o'clock.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Cube with Sister Shemiza.
Good morning and assalamu alaikum. An absolute pleasure to be in your company this morning. This is the Urban Cube brought to you on Inspire FM. The time is 10 o'clock exactly and it's March the 29th. My goodness, it's Monday morning, so it means one thing, all about motivating you this morning with some creative, candid COVID conversations, folks. As always, the show is about keeping you informed and engaged with trailblazing creatives, Muslim creatives, not just locally to us in Luton, but also nationally, brought to you on the show this morning. And today I look forward to be joined by a fabulous guest all the way from London. But before I speak to this absolutely awesome trailblazer, I just want to say a massive big salams to you all. I've been off air for the last few weeks. You may have heard some of the repeat shows. I'm back and raring to go. So I'm looking forward to getting back and presenting on the Urban Cube this morning. I want to say I hope you're all well and safe wherever you are, folks. And half term has started already. So how has it been so far with the children back home with you? I hope you've got some great things planned for them, or are you just going to chill and just go with the flow? My kids are kind of all over the household. I'm hoping they're going to stay quiet whilst I do the show from my living room, as always, in the safety of my home. And now, lockdown, the roadmap to lockdown is easing, folks. Please still stay cautious and stay safe. I think we're allowed to now meet outdoors with up to about 6 people, and lots of outdoor activities, sports activities have started up as well, will be starting this week and are opening up to the public. But as always, as we say on Inspire FM, please stay safe. Please keep your distance as best as you possibly can, and don't forget to wear your masks as well. We still need to make sure that we're taking all the necessary precautions in order to make sure that we're keeping the COVID rate down. As promised, the show is all about keeping you entertained and informed. And some of the stories this week I want to kind of share with you, or last week, was a wonderful, I was seeing social media full with wonderful images in celebration of the marking of the 50 years of independence of Bangladesh. Mashallah, green and red was pouring out on my social media. The raising of the Bangladeshi flag across London. It was wonderful to see the flag raising at Altab Ali Park, and also the London Eye was turned to green and lights. The lights of green and red lights were being illuminated on the London Eye. So these celebrations were being greatly marked across the UK. Would love to find out, how have you celebrated the independence of Bangladesh? Do tell us on the show this morning. The show you're listening to is the Urban Cube. And if you want to get involved with any of the conversations this morning, it's you can get involved with 0779 481822. You can even give us a shout out on the show this morning. Would love to share your messages as always. Now, as promised, I've got a fantastic guest, because the show is a celebration of creativity, arts and culture across the country and the world, where Muslim trailblazers are making their mark. And this guest is definitely a trailblazer. He's a notable artist. He is a spoken word artist and activist who campaigns on a variety of social and political issues. And he's joining me this morning on the show to perform not one, but 2 poetry pieces. Well, yeah, not one, but two. And the gentleman I'm talking about is no other than Mizan, Mizanur Rahman. He is joining us this morning, all the way from London, mashallah. One to help me. Wa alaikum salam, brother Mizan. How are you this morning?
I'm okay. How are you? How's everything
I'm very
where you are?
well. I'm very well. Now, Mizan, I want to share with our listeners. Firstly, all the way, you're speaking to us all the way from London this morning.
Yep, Northwest London, Harrow to be exact.
Oh, the accent says it all. Tell us exactly where are you? What does the environment look like and where you're sat? Because I always do that with all my guests this morning to get a bit of experience.
So if you want to be specific, I'm just in my room. So just talking to you in my room. However, location-wise, as I said, I'm in Harrow. I'm not going to lie, the weather is looking pretty dull. But hopefully it will get better. And yeah, it's kind of quiet where I am. So yeah, that's all I can say about that, really.
Oh, bless you. Mizan, I've just mentioned about the 50 years of marking the independence of Bangladesh. I want to say congratulations and Mubarak on that. As a Bangladeshi young man, what does this mean to you?
I'll be honest with you. I felt pretty much disconnected as a British Bengali in regards to Bangladesh. Um, I've been back twice. So first time I went back to Bangladesh was in 1989, 1990, where we stayed for a year, and then the second time was in 2002 when my mum passed away. And ever since, and I only stayed for a month, and ever since then, I was kind of, I felt disconnected from Bangladesh due to several reasons. But this celebration has made me want to emotionally reconnect with my relatives over there in Bangladesh, and my family who have been more connected than I have. A lot of them are actually happy to hear that actually, and I want to reconnect in a way where I can still do campaigning, I can still, you know, fight for the progressive values that I believe in, but obviously for the people, for Bangladeshis in Bangladesh. And so I have expressed an intention to actually join progressive Bangladeshi groups that are campaigning for positive things in Bangladesh. For me, this year this celebration marks the fact that not only are we free as a people in terms of a nation, but you know, the thing that I'm learning is that nothing you don't get anything without struggle, and you have to make an effort to get what you want. It depends, and that's whatever it is, and I think that's what the lesson of Bangladesh marks for me. We were living under an oppressive system, um, and our forefathers fought for the liberation of our people and the survival of our people. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that. The main thing is, if you have to fight for what you believe in, and it's not about being unjust towards others. It's about, you know, fighting for the values of freedom and liberty and equality. Um, and one of the things that I like now is that obviously back at that time, we were at war with West Pakistan, sorry, East Pakistan at that time. And obviously back at that time, there was a lot of that baggage that was brought to the UK. Now, there are a lot of Bengalis who are friends with Pakistanis, and those kind of things. We've left those kind of baggages in the past. So these are the things that I like. But for me, the lesson is you have to fight for what you believe in and keep on fighting for what you believe in, and inshallah, you will reach your goal. That's the main thing. That's what it means for me.
Inshallah. And this relationship between the Pakistani and the Bangladeshi community is thriving. It's beautiful. We're seeing a lot of mixed marriages. We're seeing a lot of progression in
I love it.
Britain and
Yeah, I love it.
in keeping this friendship united, mashallah. Um, Mizan, you're somebody, you've just mentioned about justice and fighting for your rights. And that's something that seems to be core in your writing, and this is what you're very noted for. You're a notable spoken word artist who's actually performed at some very significant places, and you've actually tackled topics that others may find maybe too raw to deal with, and some of those topics have been for women's rights as well.
Yes, I think that's very important. So when it comes to justice, equality, I believe my belief is that look, we have to understand what they mean, and if you really believe them, then you have to use whatever platforms that you have to speak out, and obviously practice it in your own life as well. So when it comes to just stuff like women's rights and things like that, um, to be honest with you, this issue kind of came to me by accident. It wasn't something that I was looking, that I deliberately started to look into. I did have my own opinions. However, it was only until certain activists got in touch with me people who run charities dealing with women's issues got in touch with me saying, listen, why don't you write something about domestic abuse, honor killing, and stuff like that? And the thing that I normally do is, like, before I start writing about it, I actually need to read up on the issue, like from an academic perspective. It gives me, when I read up on an issue, I feel as though I'm kind of, I get the knowledge that I need, and it helps me theoretically, in a theoretical way, map out a conception of the issue and what are the nuances and stuff like that. And once I get to that point, and then read about how people have been affected by that issue, I feel as though I'm in their shoes a little bit. So that kind of, helps in uh, me writing the spoken word from the perspective that I normally do. And that's how this woman's rights stuff got it, came, basically came to me. I was asked by someone to write about um, honor killing and domestic violence, which is what I'd done. And like prior to writing about it, I read about it, and then I got kind of interested. It piqued my interest a little bit in terms of these social and cultural patriarchal power systems that were at play, and a lot of my biases were challenged as well. And in a way, I took that as a positive because you can only grow when you challenge when your biases are challenged and your perspectives are challenged. Um, and that's what got me interested in the issue. And I just kept on reading up about it. But then what happened was when I wrote the spoken word and stuff and done the videos and stuff and performed and got in touch with the charities and got a little bit more involved in that work. I've done my own events as well. You come across, you start seeing things where you wouldn't normally see them. So, for example, um, one activist and a campaigner, and I think, and I'm not sure if she's been on your show, Huda Jawad. She lives in Harrow as well. She's a excellent advocate for survivors and a campaigner against domestic abuse and violence against women and girls. I remember I met up with her just to talk about certain things and have a debrief about you know domestic abuse and violence against women and stuff like that. And then she told me about the nuances and about the things that we as Muslim men don't see. And one of the things she said was, and this really struck me. One of the things she said was like, "Look, Mizan, like as a Muslim man, you can go anywhere in the country, and if there's a mosque, you have access to that mosque. You don't even have to think about it. Like women, we need to think about if there's women's space in the mosque. We need to know if we're allowed in the mosque." And that really struck me because I wouldn't have thought about it like that. I never did. I never thought about it like that. For me, I can go to any part of the country as long as the mosque's open. I know I can go in. Whereas I think I'm not sure what the statistics are now, but back when Huda told me this, there was about 30% of mosques that didn't have access to that didn't have that didn't have a women's area, and that's shocking, to be honest with you. But when we had that conversation, there was one mosque that I knew that didn't have a women's area. I'm not going to name where it is, but the thing is, I used to go there on my way to work, on my way to, or on my way to work, or on my way back from work. If prayer time came up, I used to go there, and I always used to think that that mosque is a new mosque. So always used to give them excuses, right, for not having a women's area. Um, but then I came across an old documentary where that mosque was there 20 years ago, like in 1997, and they still never had a women's area. And from then on, I just kind of refused to go to that mosque. Um, so those are the interesting things that are really that really piqued my interest. And what I found is that when it comes to violence against women and girls, it's part and parcel of a culture of that really dehumanizes women and girls, based on the gender, whether it's assumptions about roles, co- you know forms of control. Violence is part of that control, um, and learning that was a very, very interesting but a hard experience. And then speaking out against it, um, again, like you get these questions of your manhood.
Mm.
um, and I'll be honest with you, like it's also, I think, affected, like, uh, in a weird way, it kind of affects. I wouldn't say your chances to get married, but women don't view you the same. If you're in this area as well, a certain percentage. I'm not sure if that's a positive or a negative, but
I sorry, could you just re-explain that? Because what do you mean by that?
so there's a certain perception of what it is to be a man,
Hmm.
and um, people who speak out for women's rights and stuff like that. Majority of them are cool, but there are certain segment. There are certain groups of people who, if you don't fall into that um, idea of what it is to be a man, you're not masculine, basically. And um, what I find from my experience is that there's a small percentage of, I'm just going to be honest, women who like the idea, and this is just from my own experience as well. So I'm not generalizing. I know specific people who like the idea of a man kind of understanding, the barriers that women face.
Hmm.
But then when they actually come across a man like that, because of the fact that a lot of them have these experiences, negative experiences of men, um, they what I find from my experience is that a lot of them really can't really comprehend if that person is true or not, and that has a damaging effect. It had a damaging effect on my relationship at that time. Put it that way. Um,
Wow, that's a
and
really
that's just like, because I had to, um, let's just say the person that I was with, I had to do a lot to prove that I am not like these Asian guys. I was just being myself. I didn't go over and overboard. But I had to do a lot to prove that I am not like an Asian guy that lies and cheats and all that kind of stuff, that has several girls on the side and all that kind of stuff. Um, I had to do a lot of that just to prove that. Um, so from my experience, there are small percentage, small percentage of women who, when they come across a decent guy, because of their experiences of previous men, which I totally understand, they don't know how to deal with that decent guy, whether it's true and whether if he's true or not. And now it's like, there is this.
then everybody is tainted with the same brush, which makes it very difficult for
Yeah,
potential
and then
marriage
then
potential, which is quite a difficult area, and a lot of people unfortunately are experiencing this, and this sounds like a show in the making. So we need to maybe get you on a show to talk about this quite openly, because I think it's definitely an honest discussion that needs to be had, especially with the prospect of so many people who are struggling to find the ideal partner for marriage
Yeah,
at present, which makes it, yeah, it's definitely a tricky topic, but does need to be discussed, and why it is so difficult for young people or whatever age to get married and find people that are kind of that are trustable. Um, Folks, if you're listening into the show, you are listening to the Urban Cube with me, Shemiza. It is 10:20, March the 29th, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a very fabulous spoken word artist, a notable spoken word artist who's very passionate about social justice and human rights activism and is not frightened to talk about those issues that matter to us all. And he has a lot of testimonies, positive testimonies in reflection of the work that he does. So it's an absolute pleasure to have him on the show this morning. And the reason we have him on the show today is to talk about not only to mark the 50 years of Bangladeshi independence, mashallah, because he will be performing a piece on the
yeah.
show today, which is called I Am Proud to Be a British Bengali. And also, he's going to be talking to us about mental health as well and sharing a spoken word piece around mental health straight after the break. So we've got two amazing spoken word pieces that Mizan, the poet, is going to be sharing with us this morning, after 10:30. Now, before then, Mizan, I want to ask you, how has your experience been like in lockdown? Has that impacted your creativity or your writing in any way, or has it nurtured it?
I think it has definitely impacted it. Uh, it could have done it in a negative way if because the thing is, I only write when I need to write. I don't. I'm not like a lot of artists who write just anyway. I only write when I have to write. Whether it's if I'm writing about something specific or if I'm invited to an event and I need to write something specific for that event, it has to be on a need to basis. So in that sense, it has affected negatively. But for me, from my understanding, if you nurture a talent, it doesn't go away. It might be dormant, but you just need to reawaken it. Um, so, like going back to the issue of the Bangladesh independence celebration, um, I wrote a specific piece for that because I was invited to speak and write on that subject. So once I knew that, listen, this event's coming up in 2 days, I did what I normally do, like go through the process of kind of shaking, just re-energizing my creativity, whether that's learning about the issue, listening, and another thing is I listen to a lot of melodic kind of soothing music as well, just to get you into that rhythm as well. And once that happened, I just started writing, and that's how it is really. So yeah, it did hamper it, but it's always there. You just need to shake it off.
Now, we've got 2 minutes before we head into the break, but apart from your writing, you've been actually quite hands-on and doing a lot of community engagement as well and providing food and supplies to those people impacted in the lockdown. How was that for
Yeah,
you?
that was very, very, very rewarding, but it's an eye-opening thing as well. When you think of poverty, you normally think of countries such as Bangladesh or continents like the African continent and etc. But the levels of poverty that we have in the UK is shocking, and this is something that was actually picked up by the UN, United Nations itself, who came up with a report saying that the poverty levels in the UK are of those from similar to that of third world countries as well. Um, and you'd never see it. So what the mutual aid stuff has done is not only made me a citizen who contributes positively to the local community, but it's also helped me to actually live out a prophetic tradition, which is like, looking out for your neighbors. And so, when I deliver the mutual aid stuff, I actually get to see that the poverty that people are living under, and it helps develop my understanding of politics and how I want to be involved in politics as well. So it's been an eye-opening thing, and people who are listening, I would recommend you all to volunteer for your local mutual aid groups. They are doing an amazing job and they are actually saving lives.
MashaAllah. Folks, we're going to be heading off to a break in a minute's time, but I'm still going to be joined by Mizan, the poet, who's joining us all the way from London this morning. Mizan, you're going to be performing not one but two poems for us. I'm really looking forward to that. One called Why I Am Proud to Be a British Bengali, but the other one, Possessed, which sounds rather intriguing. I'm assuming that's around mental health.
Yep, that is around mental health, exactly.
So we're going to be hearing him performing live straight after the break. And we're also going to be talking to Mizan about his thoughts on the term BAME. Yes, the word BAME. In Wales, I've read, they're actually banning the use of the term BAME. And now BAME stands for Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups. And there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this term, especially since the Black Lives Matter movement. So we'll be finding out what Mizan thinks about the use of this term with you.
This programme will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Yusuf. I am at the Kids Inspire show. You're listening to Inspire 105.1 FM.
So you're homeschooling your kids all day long. You'd be mad to then put them in detention. And if you're in business, you'd be mad to underestimate the powerful impact of advertising on this radio station. It's the ideal way to talk to your customers, to let them know about your products and services, and we could put together an affordable and ear-catching campaign that will get you noticed. For details of how radio advertising could put you at the top of the class, click on inspirefm.org, then advertise.
सर्दी के इस मौसम में एवन लाहौरी जायका वाले बाई खालिद साहब लेकर आ गए हैं पाकिस्तानी टेस्ट में देसी मुर्गे की यखनी। एवन लाहौरी जायका जहां पर हैं करीज, मिक्स ग्रिल, बर्गर्स, चाट, सूप, फ्रेश ड्रिंक्स, फलूदा, कश्मीरी चाय और बहुत कुछ। एवन लाहौरी जायका म्यार और टेस्ट का दूसरा नाम। एड्रेस 130 डंस्टेबल रोड, बरी पार्क, लुटन, LU1 1EW। टेलीफोन 01582 968210।
There is a curse for every disease. A medical remedy best suited for that disease cures one at God's command.
Looking for a law firm that doesn't treat you like you're just any client and charge you excessive fees? At MB Solicitors, we're not just interested in your case, we're interested in you. Our lawyers work to get you the right result with personal injury, immigration, family and civil litigation services. At MB Solicitors, we won't treat you like a client, we'll treat you like the client. So call Luton 415-836 or visit mbsolicitors.com to arrange your free consultation today.
Legrave Heating Supplies. With over 20 years of experience, we're the largest independent plumbers merchant in the area, specialising in all types of plumbing and heating, as well as combination boilers and megaflow cylinders. Whether you need a new bathroom or a complete new heating system, LHS is the place. Come along to our brand new bathroom showroom at Unit 1, 3 Chorlend Lane, Luton, to see the latest range of quality bathrooms, or log on to legrave.net. We're an Interpart-approved stockist for all genuine spares. Our new store in Bedford is now also fully opened. Legrave Heating Supplies. Call Luton 84 86 88.
Heavy rain and snow, strong winds and flooding in northwestern Syria have forced more than 20,000 displaced people to abandon their tents. People are having to shelter in public buildings or out in the open as temperatures fell below zero. This is an emergency appeal. Please donate generously. Every donation makes a difference. Donate now by calling 0333 305 5000 or donate online at www.crisisaid.org.uk/flood.
इत्दाल, हुर्रियत और हक की आवाज़ हमेशा गालिब रही है और यही आवाज़ हमेशा गालिब रहेगी। आइए और सुनिए हक की आवाज़। मैं हूं इमाम हाफिज इजाज़मंद, सुनाऊंगा आपको प्रोग्राम आवाज़ाए हक में हक की आवाज़। हर सोमवार 11 बजे से 12 बजे तक only on Inspire FM 105.1.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 10:30.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Cube with Sister Shemiza.
That's right. You're going to catch a creative vibe on the Urban Cube with me, Shemiza, taking you all the way up to 11 o'clock this morning. The time is 10:30 and you are listening to Inspire FM 105.1 FM. It is Monday, folks, Monday morning. I hope you're having a great start to the week and you had a fabulously but safe weekend, folks. Now, across the weekend, on social media, I got to see a lot of green and red. A lot of my wonderful Bangladeshi friends were celebrating the 50th anniversary or the 50th independence anniversary of Bangladesh. So I got the pleasure of seeing the flag raising at Altab Ali Park, plus the London Eye being turned into green and red. The colours were illuminating across London, and lots of pictures of socially distant and safe celebrations on Brick Lane as well. So the UK at the weekend was marking the independence of Bangladesh. How have you marked it with your families? Do tell us on the Urban Cube. Now, today we have the pleasure of being joined by a very notable British Bangladeshi who has made his mark in the spoken word scene as well as the human rights activism scene as well. I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by no other than Mizan, who is a spoken word artist and an activist who campaigns on a variety of social and political issues, and is also the vice chair campaigns for his local constituency Labour Party. And he joins us all the way from London this morning on the Urban Cube show to folks to perform not one but two spoken word pieces live on the show this morning. Assalamu alaikum, Mizan.
Walaikum salam. How you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so very much for staying with us this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to your thoughts on the first half of the show. And folks, if you've missed that conversation, we will share the link and you can get to hear it on the listen back link on the Inspire FM Facebook page. We were talking about your work, in particular, your passion for human rights activism. And you spoke about sharing your thoughts as well around the anniversary of Bangladesh. And this brings me nicely onto your spoken word piece, which has been shared on mainstream radio too, as well, mashallah. And you're going to be talking to us a little bit more about what it means to be British and Bengali. I'm looking forward to hearing more about this piece. I mean, what made you want to put pen to paper and put this piece together?
So again, mentioned previously in the discussion earlier, I was invited to perform at a celebration event for Bangladesh. That was organized by Newham Council. That only happened last Friday, and because of that, I had to write something basically. And so again, what I did was just really have a thought about what it means for me. Like, first of all, as a Bengali person myself, what did the liberation war mean for me, but also what it means for me to be a British Bengali, because it is a celebration of what it is to be a British Bengali in the UK sense as well. And for me, that's a question that I've had to wrestle with in the past, and now I'm comfortable in the fact that ethnically I'm Bengali and my parents come from Bangladesh. However, I'm Bengali and I'm a British Bengali citizen. Britain is my nationality, but Bangladesh is the place where my parents and my people come from, and that's where I come from. So it was really anchoring those things really, and when I think about what makes me proud about being a British Bengali, um, I can't think of anything more than the people. The British Bengali community itself in the UK has has made a massive positive contribution in the UK when it comes to culture, when it comes to food, when it comes to representation, when it comes to media, when it comes to community work, etc., etc. And that's the thing that really makes me proud, like the progress that our people have made um, as a community, and that for me, that's what it means to be a British Bengali. Um, and I do believe that we are living the lessons from our struggle, which is to carry on struggling for a better future. And those are the things that I live by, and I think that's what, to me at least, that's what comes out in the spoken word piece that I wrote. Shall I go into it? Shall I just recite it?
Yes,
Or not?
we'd be delighted to have you perform this piece on the Urban Cube this morning.
Okay, so it's a short piece, but yeah, it's called "Why I'm Proud to Be a British Bengali." So here goes. Bismillah. Man, what can I say? Thinking about being a British Bengali taps into a feeling that's raw and real. Emotionally, there aren't many equals, but the thing that makes me the most proud about being a British Bengali is my people, especially when it comes to the progress we've made, which puts a which puts more than just a smile on my face, knowing that when our parents came, it wasn't exactly safe. Multiculturalism, still overshadowed by the politics of race. But with nothing but faith, our parents refused to back down, refused to be silenced. For us to now pick from their fruits while we stand on the shoulders of these giants. So yeah, I'm proud of how far we've come, although it wasn't an easy start, as evidenced by the existence of Whitechapel's Altab Ali Park, and in regards to that, we've still got a long way to go, if you judge by what's in the newspapers. But I'm proud to say that we have made a lot of success. We've managed to reach dizzying heights bigger than any skyscraper, thanks to individuals like Mumsy Stranger, Nasima B, and Nadia Ali, complete iconoclasts and cultural trailblazers. Even though it hasn't been easy, but as a community, we are in solidarity with them. And I want to say that due to the work they've done, I feel at home in the UK. I don't feel distant because, and this is undeniable now, there is a piece of Bangladesh in England. My people make me proud to be a British Bengali. So that's basically what I wrote for the event. And basically just inform everyone, Mumsy Stranger, Nasima B, and Nadia Ali, they were also contributors in the event as well. And they are kind of cultural figures in the community. So because of the work that they've done and with the work that other people have done, I feel at home in the UK.
How does it feel to be aligned with these notable public figures and perform alongside them to
I love it.
represent the
I
50
mean,
years?
I totally loved it. One of the things that has never left me is that even though I'm involved in a lot of political campaigning issues, I've always wanted to do stuff for the Asian community and the Bengali community as well. So whenever I'm invited or I have the opportunity to participate, I always take it up because I love doing stuff for the Bengali community and the Asian community as well. So I mean, I totally loved it.
I'm really glad you did, and I'm really glad for you that you had that opportunity to represent
Yeah.
your your roots and participate. So what a tremendous opportunity, mashallah. And and there's a wonderful piece that you shared with us this morning, which was a true homage to the struggles of your parents, and their journey coming to Britain. And you mentioned Altab Ali Park in Whitechapel, and
Yeah.
that's where flag was raised. There was a flag raising to mark the 50th anniversary of independence. What does that park mean to you, and what's the story behind that park?
So Alta Bali, in the 70s, he was a worker who was murdered. He was a victim of racism, and he was murdered. And that kind of, you know, from what I know about the story, that kind of served as a galvanizing point for the Bengali community in the UK to really get involved in the anti-racist struggle that was happening back then. Um, so the thing is, with the whole the reason why I mentioned the Alta Bali Park is the way of referencing that murder, to show that this is how far we've come, but we've still got a long way to go. If you look at the system in terms of systemic racism, the media hasn't changed that much. There's still anti-immigrant racism. There's still racism against Muslims, Asians, Black people. Um, so the thing is, it hasn't changed that much. We've come a long way, but that doesn't mean that racist murders have stopped. And the systems of racism, it doesn't mean that they've changed. So we have to, we have to use the lessons from our past to carry on fighting for a better future for all. But it's also a reminder that there was a point in time where the Bengali community and the Asian community was pretty much very, very much anti-racist. And, what many people don't know is that during those times, when the Asian community was a lot more politicized, and was taking part in a lot of these anti-racist marches, news would go around, certain parts of the country, certain parts of London. And what you had was, um, organizations, mainly black anti-racist organizations who would align themselves with Asian organizations and take part in these anti-racist marches, which is great to hear about because a lot more needs to be done in that area. Um, so that was great to know about, actually. So, you had this unification of Asian, Black, and other communities coming together, as part of an anti-racist struggle, really, against the system. And for me, I would like to see more of that. So there are some books and stuff like that, that look into that look into what happened. Like you have a book called Black Star, the story of the Asian youth movement and stuff, and that it goes into that history a little bit. But for me, Alta Bali Park serves as a reminder that look, not only is racism still here, systemic racism still here, but this served as a galvanizing point. It serves as a reminder that look, this is where we come from. We as an Asian community, as a Bengali community, have a proud tradition of anti-racism political work, and we need to see more of that.
This brings me on to lockdown and the pandemic and the impact that the lockdown has had on, I'm going to use this term, BAME community.
Yeah.
I'm going to be referencing this term again. But in particular, the Bangladeshi community and how it's impacted them. Have you seen, has the Bangladeshi community been looked after properly in the lockdown?
So when it comes to like the lockdown, if you look at last year, like it didn't really, the policies that the government was coming out with didn't really look into how they would affect, Asian communities or BAME communities and families that are from those communities. So no, I don't think they were looked after that much. And what happened was you have individuals and community organizations having to come out and communicate effectively about the reality of COVID-19 and about what we can and can't do. From a government perspective, that wasn't happening. The messaging was very confusing anyway. Um, but from our communities, there was an added level of distrust, especially within the Black community, because historically, medical apartheid was practiced, and and historically within that community, Black people were used by you could say, the pharmaceutical industries back then, for kind of medical experimentation and stuff like that. So that kind of distrust is understandable. Also, the language barrier as well means that a lot of our elders from our communities didn't get, didn't have access to information. But at the same time, because of the rise of social media uh, and the rise of the far right, including the fact that we had a far right president, misinformation about COVID-19 was spreading a lot, and this kind of affected people having distrust about the actual existence of COVID-19 itself, and now about the vaccine. And it took community organizations and individuals to actually come together to come up with these messages about, trying to correct some of these misinformation. So, from a government perspective, I think we weren't looked after, no, and our kind of issues and the nuances that that exist in the BAME community, they weren't looked into, and therefore they didn't come up with policies that would include us. So when you look at the fact that, for example, back then last year there was this issue of, like, protecting your the elders, for example, staying away from the elders, right? A lot of us live with our elders. A lot of us live with the grandparents. So how can we, stay away from them? That doesn't, so that again, that policy wasn't really looked into in terms of how it affects us. So no, we weren't. We were in a better position now, but back then we weren't.
That's through experience, and that's through education as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, individuals taking that responsibility upon themselves and helping to protect and educate the community, and then particularly the Bangladeshi community in London. I wanted to quickly move on to the term. Sorry, go ahead. You wanted to.
So I just want to say, there's one person who I just want to give a shout out to, Dr. Koyas Ahmed, lives in Bristol. He's done an amazing job in terms of his local community, and he's come up with videos where he speaks in Bengali, trying to correct the misinformation. So I just want to give a shout out to him because he's just been an amazing person.
Thank you for that, and I think it is very important to actually highlight facts and public health information in our native languages. So it's very, very important that that was done, and I'm really glad to see that happening. The term BAME, Mizan, as the Black Lives Matter movement, we've seen more attention to this term, and the fact that now people get rid of it. People are really not liking this term. And Wales is now talking about actually getting rid of the term. BAME, what does the word mean to you? And what's your thoughts? Should it be got rid of?
BAME, I don't see that as a problematic term. It's not inclusive enough, I'm not going to lie. I think a lot of people don't see the term, the definition includes all aspects of people from BAME communities. But at the same time, even though people might not like it, I am against this idea of banning words, especially from a government perspective, because there seems to be the issue when it comes to terms relating to people from Black and Asian minority ethnic communities, but not in other communities. So I understand why people might not like it. Some people do like it. And I am, to be honest with you, I'm kind of indifferent. I don't mind. I use it sometimes myself when I'm trying to engage with other people who aren't from these communities. But I'm against government banning stuff, basically, generally, like, from a political perspective. So I'm not sure if banning is the right way. Maybe, this can serve as a mechanism to educate. So it can serve as a mechanism to educate, maybe come up with a better word, but I don't agree with banning it. But that's just my opinion.
be interesting to ask our listeners this morning if they could think of another alternative word to use instead of BAME. It does seem to be, you know, every couple of years we're coming up with a new term, and it's getting used to that new term. And then when we get used to it, another term seems to come up. Yeah, it's interesting. Folks, if you're listening to me right now, this is the Urban Cube. I am Shemiza, taking you all the way up to 11 o'clock. We've got 5 minutes left at the end of the show, and I'm joined by no other than the very talented poet, spoken word artist, no other than Mizan. He is joining me all the way from London this morning. Mizan, you have another treat for our ears, and this is another spoken word piece called Possessed. That you'll be performing for us. Tell us about this piece, and we look forward to hearing it on the show.
Yeah, so again, this was Possessed is about, I wrote this because of an event that I was invited to, and it was about mental health in the Asian community. And even though mental health is real and it affects all communities, and, you know, I don't think this issue has grown even bigger now because of the lockdown and pandemic and stuff like that. When it comes to the Asian community, a lot of our families, and especially the elders in our families, would paint this under the issue of jinn possession. The fact that the person who's suffering from mental health issues can be somehow explained by this idea that they are possessed by a spirit or a jinn. And a lot of the times it happens because the cause of the mental health issue may be related to a family issue, and also it touches on issues to do with honor, issues to do with respect, issues to do with name, and therefore the idea of keeping it within the family. Don't have access to other services. You can get access to an imam who the family would probably know, and therefore, because of this, the person doesn't get the help and the access that they need, and it continues. And what's happened is that there was a report that came out called a time to change. Let's end mental health discrimination by Family Matters, and they came out. The findings of the report was very eye opening. Like, they have stories of families in the UK who have been essentially boycotted because of the fact that they have a family member that's suffering from mental health. So this is something that we need to look into even more. And I was invited to perform at this event about it, so I decided to write about it. And the angle that I came is trying to deal with this particular issue of the nuance between mental health and jinn possession. And I came out with this poem called Possessed. And yeah, shall I just recite it now?
Please, thank you.
Okay, cool. So here goes. This is called Possessed. Bismillah. Sometimes I wish my community would have a change of heart. A change of heart to help me stop walking down this lonely path, which is completely devoid of people who could see me as a human being. Since life left me scarred and I don't really know what to believe in, leaving me to constantly think, maybe I'll find peace the day I stop breathing and finally end this charade of trying to uphold a family name, covering up the fact that I'm a failure. I can really see in their eyes how much it hurts them. In my family's eyes, I'm not a real person. I'm a shadow of what I ought to be, a successful doctor or a lawyer. No, I put shame on the family tree, along with the social stigma which makes me feel like I'm living in prison. This condition casts me as the villain, when all I'm asking for is someone to talk to, even though life's not a game I could do with a walkthrough. Just someone to lend a helping hand, but my access is denied because my family don't seem to understand. It's their blind faith, which doesn't really get them to question, although I'm not mentally well, they say it's spirit possession. Whatever it is, I can't experience any inner peace, since their negative beliefs has negated my freedom of speech. When it comes to living, I'm terrified. I'm really frightened. In order to preserve my family's honor, I'm forced to live in silence. I'm forced to live in silence, which means that essentially I'm dying inside. But I'm not the only one. Others have followed due course. Thanks to the ignorance, the stigma creates barriers, so we're trapped between these four walls. Gagged and bound by secrecy laws is why I'm scared to speak. I'm scared to do this all alone. I'm already a prisoner in my family home, where I feel invisible, totally left behind, just me and these suicidal thoughts that plague my mind, all because of a question I can't answer. Why doesn't my life feel like mine? Why doesn't my life feel like mine? I'm trying to move on, but in me, something's not so compliant. I'm trying to live by the rules, but my heart's not being compliant, because visibly, I'm a free man, living in solitary confinement. I'm a free man, living in solitary confinement. Thank you.
Wow, that is so profound. Thank you so much, Mizan, for joining us this morning on and
Thank you
sharing
for
your
having me.
amazing
It's been a
talent.
great show.
Thank you. That was Mizan the poet. It is the end of the show, folks. Thank you so very much for joining us, Mizan. And assalamu alaikum. Please join us again Monday, 10 to 11 next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Be kind to others just as what? Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had been kind to you. If the manifestations of the kindness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can...
Inspiring the Luton community. This is Inspire on 105.1 FM.
अगर आप वजन घटाना चाहते हैं तो सब कुछ सही करना नहीं, शुरुआत करना जरूरी है। सेहतमंद बदलाव छोटे छोटे बदलावों से शुरू होते हैं और आपको भीतर और बाहर से बेहतर महसूस करने में मदद करते हैं, ताकि आप अधिक स्वस्थ बने और बीमारियों से अधिक मजबूती से लड़ सकें। वजन घटाने में आपकी मदद करने के